I'll say, what?
Update.
An update, right. I'm here with Dr. J.J. Hurtak. This is our ongoing series called the ET Roundtable. Today's featured guest, though, is Neil Gaur. He's going to be talking to us as soon as we get this update from J.J. Hurtak. So, J.J., what is coming down the line as far as disclosure?
I think we're going to be involving several subjects on 60 Minutes coming up this Sunday with the great cover-up specialist, Luis Elizondo. And we'll see what he puts on the table regarding why the government hasn't come clean regarding 75 years of cover-up. I think what we need to do is push the envelope of a citizen's investigation that would include Linda Moulton Howe, Whitley, Strieber, and myself, who have been involved, each of us, for more than 75 years looking at the research.
Right. No, so we're going to get to that story on upcoming shows here. So you think it's a slow leaking that we'll be getting?
Oh, definitely, it's an incremental leaking. The question is there something beyond the nuts and bolts of the UFO story? And we believe there is. As you say so well in your book, Making Contact.
Right, Making Contact. I want everyone to buy a copy of Making Contact. I don't have a copy here, but can you?
Hold on a second.
Okay, we'll get a copy. And then Neil, I had to stop Steve's camera because we're having a serious conversation here. Steve, you could put your camera on if you want. Let me just ask him this. Oh, yeah. I want to just tell people a lot of these programs have to do with Making Contact, which is my new book, which is #1 new releases on Amazon UFO books. And we'll be talking about that in upcoming shows. So
let me explain, but my background is a social scientist, one who's a cosmologist, one who has investigated in most of the major countries of the world the extraterrestrial story for more than 45 years, and having been behind the scenes and talking to top experts who are credentialed, clearly it's a multidimensional story that requires a shift in our anthropology, our culture, history, our intellectual and political understanding of life in the universe. And this requires an honesty and an open-mindedness. I'm not sure that people like Luis Elizondo are willing to talk. Certainly, they were not willing to talk to us at the MUFON event 2 years ago when I was there with you, Alan.
Well, I think they are starting to talk now a little more. So we'll just see. I mean, we can't wait for the government to tell us the truth, basically. So Neil's going to do a presentation about what it is that contact is really all about. It's his interpretation of first contact. So thank you, JJ. We'll talk to you.
Yes, my greetings to all of you out there. Keep pushing the envelope for more investigation.
Okay. We are
Thanks, JJ.
That's why we are here. Thanks, JJ. JJ and Desiree Hurtak will be on some upcoming programs. So let me introduce, well, Steve Spear and David Metcalf will be joined also by Henrietta Weekes, our ongoing roundtable discussants. Oh, there's Henrietta now. And our special guest tonight is my very, very good friend, Neil Gaur. He started Portal to Ascension. He covers the field, and you can't help but start to put together the pieces yourself. And once you hear all these people speak, it's then like up to each one of us to put together our own pieces of the puzzle, which is sort of what my book, if you can see that, is about, putting together the pieces of the puzzle. So Neil, what are you going to talk to us today about?
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Neil, and today I'm going to be talking about, it's a portion of my presentation, which is a large presentation called Galactic Origins, Dimensions, and Black Holes, where it's basically, going through the dynamics of the Milky Way and galaxy and seeing if there's any connections to what physics is saying and what mainstream science is saying to spirituality. But then it goes into this portion that I'm going to be presenting today, which is the first contact. So it's really about first contact, what's the world think about first contact, just kind of looking at different articles on it, which will then lead into an exploration of some declassified documents, some that were declassified a while ago, but just weren't available online, some that just have been released recently. And it's just a portion of that, just to kind of give you some insight but then also going to speak about some space and lunar anomalies to bring it home to the ET question.
Right. And then we'll have everyone jump in, and people also on YouTube can ask a
Mhm.
question. But just fine, what do you mean by first contact? Because there's been, according to many hundreds of thousands of people, contact already.
Yeah. Well, that's the first slide in the presentation, actually, is about the
Oh, right.
various forms of first contact and the fact that it's been happening already and what different people think first contact is.
Just a little bit about Portal to Ascension, what's coming up next week.
Yeah, let me show the website, actually. Okay, so next week, Portal to Ascension, just give you a 1-minute summary. We're conscious event production company, create over 100 events a year, branded under Portal to Ascension. We do around 20 live events, around 80 plus online events, multi-day conferences, workshops, summits. Plus, we have our annual Portal to Ascension conference that is now twice a year, and as of right now is actually free or by donation. And this is starting next week on May 20th to May 23rd. It's a 4-day online summit. Alan is one of the main MCs. There's 5 MCs, over 33 presenters now, actually. I think 35 or 36 presenters, 3 panels, which would be the ancient history and forbidden archaeology panel, the UFO panel, and then also the Ascension panel. 6 MCs, all in 4 days, about 8 to 10 hours a day. So it's just like nonstop awareness. We have around 1,000 people already registered for this, and hopefully we'll have at least 2,000 people registered. And, you know, with free online events, a portion of that will attend live, the rest will watch the replays. And just to show you some of the speakers here, it's going to be a really, really empowering event. But just to keep bringing forward this information and giving people a platform to express themselves, share their voice, and also create an online community. So our events are really fun, extremely entertaining, and it's just like awesome to be there with everybody, you know, listening into the presenters. So hopefully to see some of you guys there. Yeah, it's free.
It's all completely free. So how do they register then?
You can actually go to, this is the website, portaltoascension.org, online events, or you can just go to ascensionconference.com and it redirects you to this website. So that's ascensionconference.com, and you can register for it and you get unlimited replay access to it as well.
That is great. This is a great resource. Thanks, Neil, for doing that. And
For sure.
there's a bunch of other things coming up as well. There's Contact in the Desert. I'm going to be doing on UFOs. So I'll be having my ongoing conversation with Dr. Desiree Hurtak. Thank you, JJ. Okay. Okay, Neil, go ahead. Let's go for it. Let's do about, I don't know, 45 minutes and everyone. But if people have questions in between, can they jump in?
Yeah. Let's do
Okay.
it. And
Let's
also
go
just
to
let you know,
panelists.
your microphone's cutting in and out. So I think your wire might be messed up or something.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thanks for telling me
You're
that.
good now.
Yeah.
You're good now.
Okay. So go ahead, Neil.
All right, let's do it. Okay. So everybody, we're going to jump right into the presentation here. And I already gave you the introduction, basically speaking about how this presentation is really a lot of scientific conventional information was before this. What are dimensions? What is the Milky Way? What are the anomalies in the Milky Way? How amazing is our galaxy and our universe with all these things that we don't even know that is happening? But then the whole purpose for all of that information that we're not going to go through right now is to get to this slide, which is the beginning of really what it's about. Why are we talking about all of this, the vastness of the cosmos and what's going on? And it's about, you know, first contact, but not just contact with, you know, extraterrestrials, let's say ultra terrestrials, that are beings that have been on the planet that are evolved, you know, past maybe this dimensional reality, or, you know, interdimensional beings, whatever they may be, because many extraterrestrials may also be an interdimensional phenomena. So what is first contact? And as Alan said earlier, that, you know, some people will basically argue that first contact has already happened, right? And it's up to perspective, really, because some people might say, well, unless
Wait,
they're actually
Neil,
openly, yeah.
Neil, just slow down a little bit. Just
Okay.
I'm trying to absorb every word. So just like a half a pace, a little
Yes.
slower, just so
I can slow down. I can slow down. No worries.
Thanks.
So when it comes to first contact, many people have said that, you know, that it's already happened, and a lot of people have the different perspectives on what first contact may be to them. Some think that it's already happened because, for example, they may be having first contact in the jungles in the Amazon, such as people like Paula Harris have reported on, that people are having contact down there already. But others feel maybe that when it's a global first contact, when we're all aware of the fact that ETs exist, and now we start integrating it into our lives, like that's the next step, that would be first contact. And then others, of course, believe that maybe just a UFO disclosure when the government tells us, and that happens, and then we can move forward into this world. First contact will happen that way. But this first slide here, I'm basically breaking down just a few different forms of first contact, right? So firstly, we have channeling. And channeling is, there's Darryl Anka has explained it like this, that basically it's a vibratory match where you're shifting your frequency, and the being that you're communicating with, whether it's another aspect of yourself or, a ET from another reality dimension, you're basically matching vibrations and sending thought patterns to one another, well, one being to you, in which you're able to communicate and translate into, English or whatever language, and communicate. So channeling, it has been said, and I went to a Bashar channeling in the past, and he said that first contact would actually be channeling, that a lot of people on this planet will be getting downloads, whether it's intentionally or consciously or not, but having some sort of channeling in which we have this direct connection to, otherworldly beings, and we're able to bring in first contact that way before we have even physical contact. So that's one possibility. Then another one is telepathy, which isn't too far away from, the understanding of channeling. If you look at our ancient history, you can, there's some evidence to suggest that we may have existed in a time where we had that telepathy. And as our DNA, unlocks, our consciousness expands, that we shift from one age into another age, and the veils between this reality and the next start thinning even more so, right? As we go on the upturn of this yuga cycle, then we're able to have more of an ability to communicate through telepathy. So we already know that we use a percentage of our brain, even though all parts of our brains are used, only percentages of certain parts are used. It's not like there's just a corner of your brain that is only being used. It's all over, but it's not to its full potential. So when we start advancing that and taking that to the next level, maybe telepathy can be something that is utilized as well for first contact. Then also meditation, right? Meditation plus intention can equal experience. Meditation plus intention can equal experience. So there are a lot of people out there doing CE5 meditations. So another form of first contact. Next one here is the walk-in phenomena. And Alan and I and Sheila Seppi, we did a 3-day conference on walk-ins back in January. And the whole concept of this was that walk-ins are basically soul agreements, whether they happen while you're on this planet or whether you made this agreement before you left, that normally through a traumatic experience, there's a soul swap. A lot of times the soul that is swapping out, if not maybe every time, is actually another aspect of yourself. So it's not like a hijacking from another being. And you have this agreement to switch out. So there are people that report being walk-ins in which they say that they have memories of their other lives and other worlds, or they came here and they just started from a certain age when they moved into this body, and now they have all this, like this huge mission that is unlocked with them and all of that. So walk-ins. Now the next one I put here is healing amnesia. So on this world, through spiritual text and information, we've been talking about for a while that we have amnesia on this planet, meaning that we don't remember not only our past lives, but our interdimensional lives. If we were extraterrestrials, we don't have remembrance. There are channelers and researchers out there that say that beings on other planets that incarnate have remembrance of their multidimensional selves and their other lives. So as we heal amnesia, as we do whatever modalities it takes to get over the fact that we cannot remember this, right? Whatever needs to be done, whether it's shifting our diets, harmonizing the planet, whether it's changing the frequencies that are bombarding us all the time to harmonious frequencies that can assist us in our evolution rather than deteriorate us. When it's any of those things really can lead to a healing of amnesia. So that one for me, I would say is my number one is healing amnesia, because for me, that's what I'm doing, going through meditation and things like that, is I'm remembering my true self. And through that, if we could collectively do that, could be not just first contact, but this actually goes into open contact, right? We're talking about the steps that can be taken in order for us to move into a world where we have open, peaceful, benevolent contact with interdimensional extraterrestrial beings, right? And then
Does
astral
that make
travel.
sense? Wait, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
How's everybody doing? Are we following us? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Comments? All right.
Okay,
Great.
okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Neil. Yeah. Go ahead.
So astral travel and out-of-body experiences are pretty much happening right now anyway. So these are situations in which people are saying that they're having ET contact. I've accidentally astral traveled twice in my life, and it can happen like that, where basically I was not conscious of what I was doing and I ended up somewhere. And in one of those times I was on another planet with other beings. And then I've also heard many reports of people that have had astral travel experiences where they go and interact with extraterrestrials or whatever interdimensionally. And the last part here for this first context slide is positioning of our solar system. The rest of this presentation before this that you can actually check out on my YouTube, youtube.com/portal to ascension. I speak about the positioning of our, of Earth in our galaxy, and how when we shift into specific areas of the galaxy, we are bombarded with different frequencies, different bow shocks and cosmic rays that is conventionally accepted as actually happening. It's not just a spiritual notion. And through that, there's definitely some sort of frequency shift that is constantly occurring on the planet. So it could be that depending on our positioning of our solar system, we could be more aligned with specific energies that allow us to have open contact with extraterrestrials. Yeah, Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, I find that point to be pertinent and interesting. And I'll just bring up a little anecdote for a couple seconds, and then I'll let you get back to it. Down in Lower Manhattan is Lamont Young's Dream House. If you're familiar with the Dream House, and Lamont Young and people like Marianne Amiche were doing, it's kind of binaural beats, but they were creating. You'd go to the Dream House. There was 4 speakers in the corners with 16 synthesizers, each playing one playing everything from a very long tone, so a very slow sine wave, to a very faster sine wave. And as you wandered through this web or sea of frequencies, if you turn your head that much, everything would change. If you walked a step or two, everything would change. So you had this huge web of frequencies that was changing all the time. So when you bring up the idea that as you move through the galaxy, these frequencies change, I just like to say that as a microcosm, this Lamont Young Dream House is very instructional. It's closed down now, but it's been open 30 years.
Wow.
It's the Mela Foundation, MELA. And I know you're a sound guy, Neil, and Lamont Young studied with Pandit Pran Nath, and Pandit Pran Nath taught Terry Riley, Lamont Young, Henry Flint, Christian Hennix. So I just wanted to, so that was a very interesting point. We can come back to that later, about this kind of web of frequency that where you were positioned in it affects the consciousness, the experience. So thanks, Neil. We'll come back to it.
Thanks, brother. So yeah, that's exactly like, for example, okay, so on the slide that is not here, but I'll just show you and tell you guys, we have now proven that there is a bow shock that goes upwards, right? First of all, there was supposed to be no up and down or north and south in space. However, we completely speak about space as if it is, right? So we have this flat plane of the galaxy, and then we have the up part of it seems to have a bow shock that everything above the galaxy is being hit with this bow shock all the time. The Earth and our solar system actually goes 200 miles above the center plane of the galaxy and 200 miles below. That's our wave. 200 light years up and down, right? 200 light years up and down. So when we go on the 200 light years up, we're being hit with this bow shock. And if you look at the history books and see what's happening during the times we were supposed to be there, your just mind is blown. Like everything connects, you know? So the position
what happens during those times in history? Like what?
So it's basically on the upturns of the Satya Yuga, of the golden age, right? So you go with the ages that have been, you know, all the civilizations of the world spoke about the ages, but you go with the Vedic text, so you can look at the dates, and then you go back like as many years as you need to go back, and then you see at the end of the ages, they completely correlate with the times that we shift into these other planes, like when we go above, when we go below. So, and then also we know that there's a supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy. Normally it's dormant, but it actually starts up every now and then. And we have evidence of a few of the last times that it started up. What happens when a supermassive black hole starts up? It starts sucking in all the light. What happens with the positioning of our solar system? It slowly, incrementally gets closer and closer to the center of the galaxy. What happens when the gravitational pull of the black hole in the center of the galaxy has now increased over millennia and millennia is there's a complete frequency shift happening on the planet. So what I'm saying here is that actually affects our consciousness and our experiences on Earth, as well as the fact that it's all paradoxical, really, because not only does the radiation of every sun and every supernova and everything happening in our galaxy affect our consciousness and experience on the Earth, and this is also conventionally accepted, that radiations and like if a planet supernovas, it could create like the fall of an empire on Earth. Like, but we are also, the external reality is technically a reflection of what's within. So not only are we manifesting this external reality, but this external reality is having this effect where it's actually affecting us as well. That's a whole conversation to go into
Is
deeply there.
something
But
heating up now and at this time in our history?
so a Russian scientist around 11 years ago was doing a study of our solar system. Every planet in our solar system is increasing in temperature, right? This is one of the arguments against climate change, by the way, is that all the planets are increasing in temperature, and that our planet is increasing in temperature because we're re-entering the photon belt of our Milky Way galaxy. And this has also been said by NASA and by Russian scientists, that since we're re-entering this area now, that the vibration at the ether level is at such a high level in the photon belt, the milk of the Milky Way galaxy, that it creates a temperature shift as well, where temperature starts increasing. So yeah, it does go hand in hand that we are known to have re-entered the photon belt. So it's almost like we're having a wash of ether, because that is what the Milky Way is. The milk of the Milky Way galaxy is a very high concentration of ether. And then all other four elements, earth, wind, fire, and water, are a manifestation of ether, becoming into something physical along the lines, because ether is really the building blocks of all creation. It's what like gets spewed out, and how galaxies form and nebulae form and all of that. So, okay. This slide right here, I'm just going to briefly speak on, but there was a recent study done, and they said that right now is basically the best time for open contact, first contact, and communication with ETs. And the reason why is many institutes that would be needed governmentally and all over the world have all been initiated because of this current world crisis. So, which is very interesting that the UFO thing was put in the COVID relief bill, where at the same time, many different institutes are now being initiated that is perfect for first contact. So, and then these mainstream scientists are, on astronomy.com going out there too and saying that, right now is a great time for open contact. And when it comes to what I believe in this, a lot of things that we basically hold ourselves to, ceremonies, rituals, rites, practices, beliefs, have really come to a halt right over the last year. So a lot of things that would stop people from even having the time to even think about this, or even move away from the conventional mundane life in order to have some time to think about, oh my God, ETs exist and they're coming down here to visit now. This is really the perfect time for it, which is why it's interesting once again that it's really been a huge upturn in this awareness just in the last year to a year and a half, which has really been, there's been an upturn happening for really the last, we could say for a long time, right? JJ Hurtak would say 40 years, but for the last 4 to 5 years, it's been just like going exponential. So the question is, why, right? So this slide now, first contact, these two individuals, Hatfield and Trueblood, they surveyed 2,000 people in the UK, and they said, imagine a scenario in which scientists receive an unambiguous message from extraterrestrials on a distant planet. Of the following options, which would you preference in terms of how humanity responds to this message should be determined? And this is really just to kind of show you some statistics on, just a conventional, just a little cut out population within humanity and what people believe in regards to where first contact and how first contact should be initiated. So 39% of them said a team of scientists, and then 15% elected representatives, 11 a planet-wide referendum, meaning like we all kind of like vote on it. And then next is by citizens assembly of randomly selected adults. And then 23% of these individuals, which is like a quarter of them, basically didn't have the time to really think about it. They don't know what we should do. But just the fact that 40% said a team of scientists just shows where the collective consciousness really is right now in regards to that. And this quote at the bottom here says, we suggest there are some similarities between the COVID-19 crisis and first contact event. Both situations are scientific in nature, have significant social, economic, and political impact. Both affect humans on Earth, and both are external threats, right, that put humans on the same side. So this is basically a statement from mainstream scientists saying what is going on right now. And then it's interesting to me that whenever we see anything coming from the mainstream, they always throw in this threat thing, right? And if you've looked at any of, especially in the last 4 to 5 years, all the stuff that's come out, there's been this question: is there any evidence to suggest that they are a threat? No, they aren't. But there's one piece of evidence that they're leaning on: the fact that they find all these ET craft where? Nuclear sites, right? So because they find them at nuclear sites, that is the reason why it's become such a huge national crisis to them, and that they need to explore it. And a lot of the individuals in the government that are saying, let's do this, 6 months to disclosing this information, are coming from that angle of the threat angle, that we need to basically protect ourselves because they're showing up in military installations.
Well, the threat is the nuclear weapons, not the ETs.
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly. What I'm saying is the reason why the military officials, the DOD, government officials, Tom DeLonge are all saying we need to check out this threat is because they're seeing it at nuclear facilities. But what's really probably happening is that these beings are making sure that we don't do anything crazy and use these nukes, right? And which is why there's this is documented as well. This has come out recently. It's been out for many, many years, that the Russian nuclear codes was scrambled by UFOs decades ago, right? So why are they scrambling it? Because they're trying to hijack the UFOs, try to hijack the nukes and use it on us. Well, the evidence suggests that this UFO phenomenon has been happening ever since the beginning of time, right? Even before we had this. So, and if they're that advanced and been here for so long, wouldn't they be already doing whatever nefarious plan that is being projected upon them?
Neil,
Yeah.
what's your in that slide of the percentages of people, and which do you fall into? What's your choice?
So my belief is that it's going to happen in small groups. So I say that I don't really believe any of those, actually. I don't think we need to elect any. I think that these beings are going to interact with communities and groups in the near future, which is going to eventually start peeling over into society. Because when these beings come down, it's not like we're going to tell them to go and talk to who to talk to. I don't think we're going to be like, oh my God, you just landed over here in somebody's lawn, and the being's going to come out and say, who's your leader? And we're going to say a team of scientists. I don't think it's going to happen that way. I believe that people are going to be creating communities, meditating on specific things, using vibrational technology, assisting themselves and healing themselves from all these traumas that we've collected this life and past life. And these beings will probably observe this and want to interact with those people. And those interactions may actually start from telepathic or channeling communication before it even becomes face to face.
I won't jump off right now, but maybe for point for later on is that besides the nuclear facilities for UFOs, there's also volcanoes. I think have a high percentage of UFO activity, and we can come back.
Yeah,
to
that's
that.
interesting. It might have to do something with energy.
I think they're sucking up energy in some of those natural resources.
Power.
We could call it bursts of frequency if we were going on this kind of frequency hypothesis. Nuclear radiation and volcanic activity both having some distinct, let's say, vibrational signatures that maybe are attractive. But we'll come back to that later. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, there was actually a crash that happened in San Antonio, New Mexico, 2 years before Roswell in 1945. There was these two individuals that, two children. We went and interviewed the last survivor. It was him and his brother with Paula Harris and Clifford Stone a few years ago. And these individuals were saying that it happened after the first nuclear test occurred. Of 2 days after the first nuclear test had occurred in that area, 1 mile away from the crash happened too. So that was also something.
Is this the new book Paula Harris and Jacques Vallée are coming out with now?
No, she doesn't have it. So basically, Paula has told me to hold the footage for the last 5 years because we're waiting to collect a bunch of footage to create a documentary on it. And she just announced it at an event a couple of weeks ago.
But
so
she does have a new book
different.
coming out with Jacques Vallée about it.
She does, yeah. I think they're going to have this and mention it in there, but the book isn't about it.
That book was actually postponed from what I heard. And Neil, I'll just mention really quickly, because we're talking about the radiation and, Wilhelm Reich, in his famous Door experiment, deadly orgone radiation, where he put the uranium needle in the orgone box, he considered that to be the trigger that signaled what he called a cosmic valley forge, and triggered Wilhelm Reich's UFO experiences when he did the Door experiment. I'll be quiet.
No, thanks for sharing.
Wilhelm Reich made these things called cloud busters, which would attract UFOs because
He
of the
made them.
energy.
No, he
Mm.
made them to dissipate UFOs, Alan, to
But
fight
they
the
also be
UFOs.
attracted to UFOs.
Yeah, it
Interesting.
was, and that came after the Door experiment, the deadly
Oh.
orgone radiation, where he put a needle of uranium in an orgone box,
Mm,
and
okay.
the landscape around Rangeley, Maine, was covered with a gray powder, and
Wow.
that was he considered it almost like a dimensional rift opening, and the UFOs coming, and I believe that was in 1947 too.
All right, great. Let's get back to Neil's.
Mhm. All right. So now, what is the conspiracy theorist? You know, what was once ridiculed by mainstream media and government is now being seriously considered, right? I think most of us can come to a consensus with that. You used to hear, you used to see little green men in the background of a UFO coverage on mainstream media. You used to hear do 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 something really funny and just throwing you off in order to show that this is a ridiculed kind of funny story, right? But now all of a sudden, it's really like I have another presentation where I go over the timeline and when it shifted and all that. But you know, it happened a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago. It really started shifting from being ridiculed in order to be seriously considered, and now it's being seriously considered even more so. And we're seeing daily articles. When you used to put in UFO disclosure in the search engine 10 years ago, you would find a lot of alternative websites, including our own. When you type in UFO disclosure now, you're going to find CNN and MSNBC. They've really hijacked the keywords. And so when you go there, you see all of the information that they are putting out, right? So this takes me to Project Mockingbird. And again, a lot of you probably have heard of Project Mockingbird, but it was a project undertaken by the CIA beginning in the 50s, in which they recruited American journalists into a propaganda network. The recruited journalists were put on a payroll by the CIA and instructed to write fake stories that promoted the views of intelligence agency. Student cultural organizations and magazines were allegedly funded as fronts for this operation. So not just mainstream media, they were in student cultural organizations and magazines, and they actually shortly after expanded to influence foreign media as well. Because we're not talking about the FBI, we're talking about the CIA. So they want to have an international reach, right? So then it was said that this project stopped, but as a lot of us know, is what happens in that point is they become black budget projects and they continue under some sort of veil that no one actually knows is actually happening. It's being using black budget money. A great example of that would be Project Blue Book that actually had supposed to have stopped, but now we're finding out that there were multiple UFO programs that happened after Project Blue Book that continued the program, but just given a different name and were kept off the books. So that's a great example that we've now proven that a lot of these projects actually do become black budget projects. And in Project Mockingbird here, the journalists not only were getting like full-time salaries from the CIA, but they were also getting full-time salary from the media agencies, and they wanted people to believe that they were part of them. So just think of how nefarious and manipulative this plan is, where they actually had, and they still do have people putting forward their information. And in the end here, I'm saying they are still saying Roswell did not happen. So part of this is, there have been documents that have come out that say Roswell actually did happen, right? And there have been documents that have disproved it. And this document right here that has just been released around 3 or 4 months ago, but may have been released before, just wasn't available online, is actually on the NSA's website. That it says that the whole Roswell thing actually didn't happen, and it was not even considered a UFO event until 1978 and 1980. Well, we know that's not true. And I've seen art and documents as well that have actually said other things that kind of imply that there was some sort of craft that was found in Roswell. But the question is, if they're seriously considering this whole thing and talking about sightings, even talking about the sighting, the UFO flyover of Washington, D.C. in the 1950s that many believe were Nazis from Antarctica, if they're still talking about those being real, why are they saying and trying to show us now that Roswell didn't happen? And this document is actually one of the first releases from the COVID relief bill. When they did the COVID relief bill, they didn't wait. They're not waiting to June 1st. There's been drops every month. This was the first one. And the first one was Roswell didn't happen, guys. And this is what it looks like is happening. If they admitted Roswell happened, there would be a huge, huge backlash on this, because the amount of time, energy, money, movies that have been invested into not accepting that Roswell is real is plentiful. So what they're saying now is that they started getting the first sighting in the 50s, and even the DC flyover was one of them, and that's when Project Blue Book began. And then they started, really seriously looking into this, but they had no idea what was going on, and they still do not. That is basically what is being put out there. And now they want to find out what the DoD knows in order to figure something out. So it's interesting to note that they are saying in this first drop that Roswell was not a real case. However, a lot of the cases that continued, such as this page right here, are actually legitimate. This is the website that was released back in January, the NSA's website that that started the first initial set of documents and releases. And you can see here, there's some interesting articles. Look at this one right here. It's kind of a little highlighted, but it says celestial body observed over Antarctica, right? That's very interesting. We have here as well the French UFO study, and the French government over a decade ago were one of the first that actually released, just like we're happening now with the DoD, they did the same thing over a decade ago where they released it. It wasn't seriously considered. Many believe that UFO disclosure won't happen until worldwide, until the US government acknowledges it, just because of their involvement in it. And then we have here the one that I showed you earlier, Report of Air Force Research regarding the Roswell incident. So this is the one that they released to disprove that Roswell even happened. And then the last one you might not be able to see, but I'll show you on the next page, is at the bottom. This is a very interesting one there. Key to the extraterrestrial messages. I wonder what that is. So I opened it up. And here is, it seems that at one point in our past, I don't know, the date's probably on here somewhere, we sent a message out into space. Not some of the messages that are sent from SETI, for example, that the world knows is being sent back, but something that was sent, that was classified at one point, sent into space. But
is this an NSA document you're looking at?
Yep. But the really interesting thing that doesn't seem that they told anybody when it happened is they received the message back. And this right here is the message back in codes. They also received a way in order to translate the codes. They don't have any there of their documents showing what the message was. They just have the document saying, this is what we did. This guy right here, campaign. This is what we did. This is what we sent up there. And then also, if you look right here, B is equivalent to AAC. So they're breaking down the code right here, but I'm no code breaker and I can't read. I don't really understand it all. So I didn't go through it to try to break the code. No, they have done it.
But they haven't told us what it means.
No, exactly.
There must be someone who could translate that, I think.
I'm sure. And so that's why I say I've done this declassified thing 5 times in the last 6 months. Every time I do it, I tell people, please go to the website, look at all these things and see what you find and can figure out, because there's not enough people out there trying to do that.
What is the website again, Neil? What's the website?
NSA.gov. Just put in UFO NSA on any search engine. It'll be the first web page.
And then all the UFO documents come up. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this one here, this is the extraterrestrial communication that we received back. Recently, a series of radio messages were heard coming from outer space. The transmission was not continuous, but was cut by pauses into pieces, which could be taken as units, for they were repeated over and over again. The pauses show here as punctuation. The various combinations have been represented by letters of the alphabet so that the messages can be written down. Each message, except the first, is given here only once. So, they're basically saying what it is, but they're not saying what it is.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the FBI's website, right? FBI UFO, lots of documents there too. And this is just the homepage really of that page. And you can see they have studies from other countries, German scientists article there. They have the French flying saucer study, I believe, is on this page somewhere, not on this one specifically. And then all the sightings that have been reported as well. So this is part of the drop that we're talking about. They started the drops already. So this right here is just raw data of sightings. And there's some interesting ones, man. Like there's this one in New York. It happened. Most of these documents are from the 50s and 60s, right? Some of them from the 40s. Some go back to 43, right? And it's like, and in the 50s, for example, I think it was 57 or something like that. And I don't have it here, but I'm just going to tell you guys about it. Was this sighting where someone was on a hiking trail in New York and they went and they found a landed UFO that they never saw flying, but the UFO was right there. And they explained, the whole document is explaining the material and what was on it and the symbols and all of that. right?
But the big question is, why isn't the Senate looking at these documents? Why are they waiting for something else to come up when it's right out there to begin
Yes.
with?
It seems, if just look at, for example, look at what Tom DeLonge said, look what all the NASA members said and CIA members said. They keep going back to the technology. What is this technology? What is this technology? They're not interested in who's flying them as much as we are. They're interested in reverse engineering technology in order to use it for themselves, whether it's for weaponization or not. So they're not talking about all of these sightings and these symbols and these beings and the messages, because it's not interesting to them. It seems, I feel that they really just have this agenda to figure out what technology is being used and find out how we can use it to
Superior, yeah.
yeah. So this leads me to actually a Luis Elizondo interview that happened last week on the New York Times that I saw. And so they've been saying that these crafts are using physics on a level that we don't even know, that we don't even know that exists, goes against every law of physics. But all of a sudden last week, what did Luis Elizondo say on New York Times interview on YouTube? He said, actually, we know all of these physics exist. However, they're around 100 years advanced into our future. We only knew about all of this physics in theory right now. All of the craft, what we're seeing happening, it's not like it's not true when we say we don't know what's going on, they're violating physics. What is true is we know in theory that all of this is possible. That's why we got Star Trek and Star Wars doing it. That's why we got people trying to figure out quantum physics and how to make that into technology. But we aren't even anywhere near actually implementing it. Those are his words. We're nowhere near implementing this technology.
Great. Okay, sorry. That's my ship.
So I should go for like 10 more minutes and then we can
go a
talk.
little more.
All right.
Is there any questions? Oh, Henrietta, you have anything to jump in with right now? Unmute yourself.
No, not right now. I'm just really enjoying listening. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Neil.
So the UFO conspiracy, and we can go into, let's just break a myth right here really quick. The CIA did not create the term UFO conspiracy theorist. The term conspiracy and theorist actually existed before that, but they put them together and used it in order to, brand it for specific things that had to do, well, some people say it's from JFK, other people say it's from UFOs, some people say it's for both. But the UFO conspiracy, we've probably heard, I don't know if you've heard, I've heard a lot of times, the reason why that they haven't told us and they lied to us for so long is because they believe we aren't ready for the truth, right? And then also another thing would be the weaponization of space. Like, as we just spoke with Alan about what is their agenda, are they trying to weaponize space? And then they aren't ready for the truth. The whole concept there is that this is unpacking kind of my theory on what's going on and the reason why they are releasing this information now. They're saying Roswell never happened because that would be a huge backlash. They're saying all of this occurred and we've been exploring it for some time, but we don't really know exactly what this thing is. Then they're saying that the DOD and different departments have known about the existence of UFOs for some time and they've been holding it from the government. What have they done? They've completely let go of all accountability for themselves for lying to us. Not only have they completely disregarded the first case that has been recorded that became huge, that could create a backlash, but they're also saying that it wasn't us, the government, it was the DOD and these people that work for the DOD, and now we're demanding that they come out with the information. So no one can be at fault for this. So part of this whole way that they're doing it is maybe, agenda oriented to weaponize space, but they're also doing it in a way that they don't get any backlash from the public for the mass amounts of lies that they put onto us.
Right. The other thing that they're doing is they're saying, well, it just seems to have started in 2004 with the Nimitz.
Yeah.
They're not even
Exactly.
going back to the 90s
Project
or the 50s.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
There's no talk about Project Blue Book. They're just talking about ATIP, like it's more recent.
It's already a cover up in progress.
Right. Yeah. So witnessing UFOs has got them scared. Witnessing UFOs in over nuclear facilities has them scared. That seems to be one of the reasons why they have a specific agenda. This quote right here is from a Pentagon representative, and it really tells you everything in regards to how they investigate this and why. Our aviators train as they fight. Any intrusions that may compromise the security of our operations, tactics, or procedures is of great concern. As the investigation of unidentified aerial phenomena sightings is ongoing, we will not discuss individual sighting reports or observations. what they're saying here. What are they saying here? He's saying that any intrusions that compromise our security will make us be concerned and start looking into it. And that's pretty much the bottom line of at least the majority of, the people working there that maybe aren't some sort of person that has another type of insight on this whole extraterrestrial question that maybe you and I can't even speculate on at this moment. But that shows that I feel that they are really trying to look at the technology here and figure out how they can utilize it for themselves. Or who has this technology? Is it another government? Do they really believe it's another government, or it could be another government, or are they leaning more towards, the extraterrestrial?
Well, why couldn't the other government be an extraterrestrial government?
That's true too. There's so many possibilities here. Okay, so
That's a good point, because maybe the extraterrestrials are actually behind the government cover up.
yeah, and that's why I said the people that work here, like a regular employee, is saying this, but who is their supervisors and overlords and the real people with the intention? I'm not going to even begin to speculate on. All I know is the rabbit hole goes deep. That's all I've been really figuring out over the last 20 years, right? And it goes so deep to the point that I don't really know what the true agenda is. We can only observe it and speculate it and see what happens, report on it, and then we can really only focus on what we want to bring into this world, which is the positivity, right? And the understanding that we live in such a vast cosmos and our ancestry is connected to these beings, which is a whole other part of this presentation I'm not going to get into. So
Keep going for a little bit.
yeah, well, I want to
yeah,
do Mars and Venus. This is the next two places, and then we're done. Okay. So there's a project called Project Stargate. Type in Project Stargate, go CIA, go to their website, go and look at the hundreds of files there, read through it, and please let me know what you find, because there's so much stuff there. But here's a little transcript from Project Stargate. Steve, David, Henrietta, Alan, have you heard of Project Stargate?
Go into what it is, actually.
Okay.
It's remote viewing, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So here's an article that says, did the CIA really actually project to Mars in 1984? We ask a psychic spy. Yes, the answer is yes. So this transcript right here is between the CIA agent and the actual individual remote viewing. And I'll read it out. The remote viewer. I'm seeing it's like a perception of a shadow people, very tall, thin. It's only a shadow. It's as if they were, and they're not there anymore. Agent, go back to a period of time when they are there. It's like I get a lot of static online and everything. It's breaking up all the time, very fragmented pieces. And then subject again. I just keep seeing very large people. They appear thin and tall, but they're very large. Wearing some kind of strange clothes. Okay, that's just a portion of it. You read the whole thing, mind blown after mind blown of what they're doing. No matter what it is, it's a mind blowing experience. The reason why is, one, if they're actually remote viewing to 1 million years BC, as it says in CIA document, 1 million years BC on Mars, how interesting is that? But if they're not actually remote viewing there, but the fact that the CIA hired someone in order to do that, that's also a mind-blowing thing right there. So no matter which way you look at it, the fact that this exists is very interesting.
Well, I heard there was a huge atomic blast on Mars that just wiped out civilization, and it's still radiation there on the surface that
yeah, I've heard that too.
Remnants of that. So that's what Linda Moulton Howe talks to people about that. Yeah, go ahead, Neil. Yeah.
I just want to say, it's when we speak of Mars and even Venus, we really have to take into consideration the cultural baggage. I mean, Flammarion to Percival Lowell to Edgar Rice Burroughs to a bunch of, there's so much cultural baggage that informs these remote viewers and also creates interference when you remote view,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, so that's why I said, no matter which way you look at it, it's kind of interesting. Even if CIA government, what led them to those steps that took them to a place where they were in a room with someone saying, please go to Mars 1 billion years ago. You know what I mean? Even if that guy was completely wrong, completely off, that in itself is just questionable, right? And then if we think about if the fact that that's any reality to it, that's just a whole new ball game of experience, really. So here's some Mars anomalies now, right? This is actually from the Mars rover that actually landed just a month or two ago, right? So they found this thing right here that, you may think is a speck of dust. So what they did was they did 3 images within 1 second of the same area, and this thing only shows up once. And they did a spectral analysis on it, and it seems to be a solid object, right? So this is just one of the anomalies that they're finding now. And I'm not here to say that there is something happening on Mars or not. All I'm going to do, and what I like to do, is just stick to what is coming out there as something that is verifiable. And for this, just the fact that spectral analysis shows it's solid, and the fact that they took 3 images within 1 second, and it only shows up in one of those images, it's just something to explore right there.
Wait, I just want to back up for a little bit, Neil, because we go from, you're going from a huge leap from, government cover up, there are UFOs, to life on Mars, where we don't even know if there was life. There probably was, of course, but what's the connection from what you did to the life on Mars and Venus?
Okay, so this whole presentation is basically providing anomalies of space and the universe, including declassified documents, in order to get to the point of the realization that they could be, life on other planets. And for example, I'll give you this one right here. This one right here is showing what we've backdated Mars to in order to explore how it could have possibly looked in the past, and also the understanding that as we move further away from the sun, the atmosphere changes, and when we move out of the Goldilocks zone, we're then in a position where we can't sustain life on Mars. So what I'm really doing is the declassified documents was only a 15 to 20 minute portion of a 3.5 hour presentation. I started with that one because that is where we're at right now, and what's going on with the disclosure and the June documents, just to show some of the initial documents here. But now what I'm going to do is just go into some things about Mars, right? And the positioning of Mars and how it's moving away from the sun. And then also go into Venus, a discovery that was found on Venus just last year that maybe implies that there was life on Venus now, or there may have been life in Venus in the past. And then the last slide will just be showing you search engines in order for you to be able to do the research yourself. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it today.
Well, no, that's great. So, but what's the conclusion that you come to? Like, okay, how do you put it all together, like wrap it all up?
See, then that gets into the spirituality of it all, because I'm just giving you the conventional stuff right here.
So let's get into the spirituality too, because we're all sort of spiritual type
Okay,
people.
yes. All right, so, well, should I do these 2 things on Mars and Venus and then close it with that?
Yeah.
Something that closes it out?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
That sounds good. All right. So let me get into this. The positioning of the planets in our solar system, the majority of planets, if not all of them, are slowly incrementally going further and further away from our sun. There is a Goldilocks zone, yes. In the Goldilocks zone, it seems to be the most preferable area for 3rd dimensional life to exist, life like this on Earth. Whether in different dimensions, life doesn't need the same soup, life isn't really influenced so much by the sun and how far it is, who knows? Some people say, yes, that is definitely the case. But in this existence, within the Goldilocks zone, gives us the favorable situation for life. Now, Earth is actually moving away from our sun at 1.5 centimeters per year. So Earth will be able to host life within the Goldilocks zone for just another 1.75 billion years or so before it actually moves out of the Goldilocks zone, and technically should not be able to, conventionally actually sustain 3rd dimensional life on the planet anymore. So whether we're going to ascend into another reality by then, some people believe that we can get into a level of consciousness and technology where we're able to move the position of the Earth somewhere else, and maybe even Earth was brought from another solar system or a galaxy. But within this reality, in this dimension, we are moving away. And that's the same thing that happened to Mars, that when billions of years ago, Mars was actually closer to the position that Earth is right now. And just by going backwards, really, and looking at and filling in the water beds and looking at the canals on Mars, there's all types of graphs now and images of what Mars may have looked like when it had sustained life on there and when it had a more thick atmosphere. But something occurred in order for that to not happen. Not only did it move further away and the climate shifted over a long period of time, but also the atmosphere got ripped from the planet for the most part. And as Alan said, that it could have been a situation where there was a war on the planet, there was an explosion, and it became habitable anymore. There's also some channelers that say that the technology on Mars was using something called an external Merkaba, where they were really external rather than using internal advanced conscious technology. And through that, they created this destruction on Mars because they couldn't sustain the energy anymore and eventually had to migrate to Earth, in which there was already a population of humans on this planet, and they intermingled with us in the future. So if you want to look at any of the documents that I said before, you can just type these into the search engines, NSA UFO, CIA UFO. But I do recommend, if you're out there, you have some time. And what's actually really great is going to these websites, taking screenshots, putting it in a UFO folder in your phone. And then when anybody talks to you about it in day-to-day life, you can like bust out the evidence. And I've actually done that for some things where I'm having conversations with people that don't believe in this, and then I show them these documents and I get their input and what they think about it. And I found that's a great way to really get this out to more people. So just the last component here, and I know, Alan, I'm jumping all over the place, but the whole thing here is just talking about the beauty of our universe and our solar system. It's not
really
just about the documents. Okay,
it's all
cool.
good. It's all good research. So yeah, no, this is fine.
Yeah. Because in the presentation, I build up to it, but I don't want to go there. I want to speak about specifically the topic of this roundtable. Okay.
Yeah.
So organic matter found on Venus. There's an unexplained molecule that has found on Venus that hints at life. The molecule is called phosphine, right? Phosphine is known to be formed two ways. It's either formed naturally, organic, from the decay of organic matter, or it's found industrially, meaning humans are creating something that gives you a byproduct of phosphine. So it's either decay of organic matter or formed industrially. And it seems like we're finding a huge amount of phosphine in the atmosphere in the middle layer of Venus. And this was just discovered in the last couple of years. Phosphine has been detected in Venus's atmosphere, raising the question of whether the molecule might be a sign of life on the planet. On rocky planets, life is the only known source of the compound. But the interesting thing is that the phosphine was found in the middle layer of the atmosphere where the temperature is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. In a very moderate area, it's been found. So a lot of scientists are now saying that either it means that, it's being formed by someone and it's a byproduct, or that it's a decaying organic matter that is creating this. And each of those kind of makes you wonder, what could actually happen. But then they started going back into the history books to see if there was any record of NASA finding phosphine on Venus in the past. And yes, there was. NASA found phosphine on Venus the first time we ever went to Venus, but they didn't know what it was at that time. So when they discovered it now, they're like, oh, wait, phosphine, this is what it means. And then they started looking back at the data and then realized that they knew that phosphine was on Venus ever since the first time we went to Venus. And we just didn't know what it was at that point. So they didn't go out and tell everybody, that it was discovered and what it meant. While conditions on the surface of Venus are hostile to life, the environment in its upper cloud deck where the phosphine is discovered is temperate. Okay, so I could go into what the next part of this presentation is, which is the Lyra constellation and galactic origins, or I could just end it right here, Alan.
Well, let's just end it for a little bit so we could just have a little bit of discussion, and you could throw in some of the Lyra and stuff if you want, like later or in the discussion.
Okay.
What do you say about Lyra? You say that it's the source of civilization and life forms.
There's been a lot of people that have speculated that Lyra is the cradle of human civilization. Humanoids came out from it. So what I do here is I talk about Lyra in the conventional sense. How many light years it is from us, where it's located, what stars are within it, what constellations are next to it. And then we get into what the scriptures and what individuals in ancient history has said about human origins and how that connects to Lyra. And then I get into the galactic story of humanity, which would be including these races.
We could do that another time. I think.
Yeah, this is actually its own presentation
with everyone, but that would be definitely another roundtable. But so, what are you thinking, David? It looks like you're thinking.
Yeah, Joe McMoneagle's Mars remote viewing is one of my favorite episodes in the Joe McMoneagle remote viewing stuff. It's interesting because that one actually took place at the Monroe Institute. So it was after he was out of Stargate. And
interesting.
he was tasked by an independent person had brought an envelope to Robert Monroe, or at least to the Monroe offices. And Monroe came to Joe and handed him the envelope, which had the coordinates in it. And so Joe started remote viewing that and was like, this doesn't make sense. Like none of this makes sense for Earth history. I don't know what this could be. And so he went through and did because remote viewing is blind tasked. So the remote viewer doesn't know, what they're looking at until it's after they get the feedback. So they went through the whole remote viewing session. So everything that you read there about the pyramids and the tall whites and all that, that's all things that he was getting from the coordinates that he was given. And then it turns out, when they when they open the envelope and see what he was tasked with Mars,
Wow.
at this coordinate on Mars. So it's a really kind of interesting thing, and it's
Yeah, it
interesting
is.
as well because the Monroe Institute, obviously, Robert Monroe was very interested in non-human intelligences and some of the experiences that he had through, like Steve was mentioning earlier, binaural beats. Monroe had developed the HEMASync technology and had a lot of experience encountering non-human intelligences through his out-of-body work.
That was the Gateway Project, Dave? The Gateway, what was it called?
Yeah, well,
Gateway?
the Gateway experience is kind of the technology that they developed for that process that Monroe developed there's different levels of consciousness that you can enter through the Gateway experience. It's pretty powerful. I wasn't expecting. I've experimented a lot with self-hypnosis stuff and binaural and isochronic tones, and I wasn't expecting to be surprised when I tried the Gateway experience ones, but they're significantly better than other stuff. Monroe definitely put some time in on that.
But I want to just talk about, I just want to talk about what Neil presented here and like what we can do with this. How does this further the understanding of what the government's going to come out with? It's all pretty matter of fact. It's like, yeah, this is real. This is true. But what do we do with it? What do we make of it? How do we move this information into the world to like make it different?
Alan, let me address that really quickly.
Yeah, good.
Because like talking about this mesh of sound and frequency, we find ourselves in this mesh of mythologies. And when we started this, I thought about Leonard Cohen saying, "Let us now compare mythologies," one of his early poetry books, or Timothy Leary saying, "What's your cosmology?" He said that's what he would ask people. So we're in this web of cosmology, these vibrations. So I'll just say that I think the way we get through it is by improvising. And I'll just say that we improvise on the harp of lyra.
What does that mean?
Well,
you just can't throw out those little puzzles and
okay.
Well,
no, okay. The harp of lyra. I'll go into it. So lyra is a constellation where there's an eagle holding a harp, right? Do you know that?
No.
Okay, so there's an eagle holding a harp. That's the constellation Lyra. Okay, so Lyra is playing an instrument. This instrument is now, people are saying that the emblem of the United States emblem of the eagle, the shield, is actually the eagle holding a harp. It's not a shield with the line. So the eagle is
interesting.
The eagle on the Great Seal is holding a lyre.
Right.
Yeah. And now, well, I'm just because Alan, you made me talk. You said you can't leave it hanging there. I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
This is.
I think go ahead. I'm interested. Yeah. If he stopped freezing, I guess the gods of Zoom had other things to say.
Alan, I've got a quick thing. I think that with with anything that we're going to be provided by an official release, I think it's a jumping off point for conversation with people. But I think that the real meat is everywhere else. You know, it's not tech.
Yeah.
It's not tic tacs in the sky, and
Yes,
it's not
yes.
radar returns. You know, so I think that it's a jumping off point for conversation with people that wouldn't normally address the subject, but for people
Yeah.
that really want to engage with it, I think you know, it's the contact modalities that Neil had showed earlier, and that kind of
Mm.
thing.
Well, what do you make of it, Henrietta? You've been involved in this field for a while now. A short.
Well, quite a relatively short time. I agree with what David just said, that, you know, for me, that these releases are literally like, it is a conversation starter, but really it there's no meat there, really. I mean, you know, because, sorry, the dog, one sec.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, you know. I think that when Neil said at the beginning of the presentation, you know, somebody asked him, you know, how would you, if we received messages, you know, who would you ask, which group would you ask to investigate? And he said, groups of people rather than any kind of, you know, groups of scientists. I mean, I think it's just going to be, it's up to us, you know, how we go forward. And also it just made me think, this whole presentation, thanks Neil, just you know, there's still so much mystery and conjecture. And I noticed in some of your notes, you know, like with the phosphine on Venus, that the paper that astrochemist had written, something weird is happening. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, we you know, we just don't know. We're really piecing a lot of things together. But I agree with David, and I think we've all talked about this, that it's through the sort of personal and group experiences. I mean, whatever with the tech, I mean, that's obvious that we have no idea what that is in terms of our earthly measurement skills, you know, because I mean, when I've seen UFOs only once, but I mean, I knew that I was seeing something that was not understandable in terms of this world, you know.
Well,
so
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I just want to jump.
Well, no,
on
I think
that.
that it's,
Go ahead, Henrietta. Yeah.
yeah.
No,
No,
go ahead,
I
please
think
finish
that's it.
up.
It was just really interesting. I like all these this kind of data that you were talking about, but I've got to say that personally today, because I came straight here to come on here from the swimming pool just up the road, and I had no idea, actually, Neil. I hadn't had a chance today to look at who you are, I'll be honest, and you know, I didn't know you were going to do this, but that's exactly what literally just popped into my mind as I got in the car, was this galactic origins, and everything that you talked about. It was almost like I sort of kind of knew you were going to talk about this.
Wow.
I mean, that's more
awesome.
interesting. I'm interested in sort of what is happening for us all in terms of you know, precognition, telepathic communication, dream contact, or you know, the project Stargate is really interesting that you talked about that, because I've just been reading about it in a book, and so many people don't know about it. You know, that so many people don't know how much sort of government agencies and intelligence agencies have been using psychic spies and remote viewers for a long time. You know, and it's just fascinating to me that so many people I know, you know, don't even talk about these things at all. It's not even on their radar. You know, isn't that the interesting thing? So anyway.
No, that is. Thank you, Henry. Those are really good insights. And as you're talking, I'm thinking also about what Steve said about mythologies and could it be, Neil? I'll just throw this out to you, and it's not a criticism or anything, but could we be being fed the narrative that, you know, from the government leaks as a kind of very planned mythos that we're here to buy, and people like us like think we're all of us, me definitely, like, oh, we're getting the leaks, we're getting the truth, we're getting, and
Totally.
could this be a new mythology that, like Terence McKenna said, that we're led to believe in order to hide what's really going on? You know, it's like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
this is
That's what I think. Totally. It's like the project, you know, it's literally like fake news, fake story. I mean, they've been doing it for a long time.
If I'm going to jump in, because I have to read from Breton.
I mean, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying that could it be a great government leaking to buy to
manufactured mythology.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what were you going to read from,
Instead of
Steve?
organic mythologies.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to read from Breton, Andre Breton. Andre Breton posed the question, can a society exist without a social myth? And to what extent can we choose or adopt and impose a social myth which we judge desirable? So can a social myth, a desirable social myth, be imposed on a population? This is Andre Breton, the head of the Surrealists, saying this. This isn't even a government official. You know what I mean? And then we have to ask how these Surrealists were with the government or politics in this kind of web. Again, we find ourselves in this vast web where, you know, to think of it, and again, it's a rhizome. I see it as a rhizome and not a
Explain that again.
tree.
Rhizome.
You know,
Rhizome.
see it as a manifold.
Yeah. I think
Well, a
close it.
rhizome, it's, you know, it's a root system. Every time I start saying the good things, my internet goes unstable.
No,
But it's true. I was babbling to my. No, it's not. It's a root system that
Okay.
it's
Yeah. But
you know, anyway.
yeah, no, I do want to say, because Neil did, like,
Yeah,
you
let me
know,
comment on
10
that.
years of work or research, there is a history that
Yeah.
we can call mythology as well, but there's actually a
Yeah,
history.
yeah.
We all have our own personal histories that we actually have mythicized. You know, I met this person and this, and my mother and father. We create our own myths, and we have to, and there's something behind the myth. I don't know what that thing
Yeah.
is behind the myth, but Grant Cameron was saying a couple of weeks ago, these may not even be aliens. We may just call these things aliens because we can't perceive what this might really be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I don't know, Neil. I mean,
Well,
I mean, yeah. What do you think, Neil?
Okay, so I actually, contrary to what any of you guys might believe, I have 0 eggs in the basket of government disclosure. I don't. I do hundreds of hours of disclosure information a year, and not even 30 minutes is declassified documents. You know, it's almost all spiritual stuff. So like, this is just because this is the theme of the moment. I put this together, and it's really like, when it comes to the UFO documents, there's a lot of information out there that's making me believe that many of these craft were known what they were all along, and some of them could have actually been advanced projects that were used by different governments, mainly our own government, the US government. And then I did, like, for example, Air Force historian Michael Schratt. I did a 4-hour presentation with him 6 years ago, and most of the things that they're showing right now are the images that he showed in our presentation, right? And he was telling us which corporations were involved in creating them. So I think it's like a lot of disinformation mixed with like 25% of great info, real stuff, which is what they do a lot. There's definitely something going on there. This might even be just a way for them to release the technology they already had. Because how did they start this all out in the first place? Was that we need to figure out what these are so we can create them. The whole Tom DeLonge thing was all about, like, let's triangulate what these craft are and where they are so we can figure out what they're using to get to us. And so it's just, and even his projects were fundraising in order to create craft, like we were seeing.
So corporations exist on a consumer. The consumer is what drives a corporation. So could it be that Roswell, et cetera, are false flags to create a consumer mentality as opposed to a creative mentality, which we should go back and now speak about our spirituality as opposed to speaking about the web. They create a web, a mythos, which is based on consumerism. Buy Allen's book, yes. Go to your thing, yes. But let's talk about but that's consumerism, and the opposite of consumerism is the creative act, right? Where we create our own mythology. So let's talk about spirituality, Neil, because
let's talk about spirituality, because I appreciate, this is important research, because it is what we're dealing with on like this first level of what the government
know your
wants us
enemy.
to know,
Know
but
your enemy.
But they're pretending that they don't want us to know, but yet they wanted us to know this. It's
right.
It's, and
So let me
below all
close
that,
up what I was saying there in
pull up
regards
your
to that.
thing. Yeah,
No, not
go
that.
ahead.
I just want to close off that part of it all and say that when it comes to the documents and all of that, they are just there to show my dad, because he doesn't believe me. That's why, I'm like, dude, there's something going on. And if anything, it's like, just to me, I'm just so amazed at how deep this rabbit hole goes of creation and consciousness and who we are. Just the understanding of the cycles of time is just so amazingly beautiful. And the fact that there are these people that come in all these ages that have the awakened consciousness of these other ages, and they just can't even fit into this age. They're like, are almost struggling and like in their bodies of why I'm here on this planet, because they already have the mindset and the consciousness of the age that they want to create. And all these people are awakening up, and during every single cycle, even though it might be very dense, there's always groups of people that can get fully liberated. And that's what's
Neil,
really is.
would you mind? Would you mind, Neil, doing one of your raps right now for us to put us in that mode?
Right now in this moment.
This is Neil's art form, which is really
put us in that mode.
Henrietta, as a poet, I think you really appreciate this.
Man, I got to get something on Galactic Origins then. Hold on. Let me get some.
And spirit, you have one coming from the nothingness and all that.
The void,
think
yes.
too much, Neil.
Okay, no. I'm just going to read what I got here. The void, the void.
Let's also go into the spiritual conversation after this, because this is where it all leads to.
Okay, so this is just okay, hold on. Fragmentation. So I'm going to do 2 poems back to back. One just going to set the precedence for it.
And I
this
want
one's
to put
called
this to music, Henrietta.
Fragmentation.
I want to put Neil's poems to music. I think it would be great.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm in my process of doing that now. I need assistance. Okay, so this one's called Fragmentation, split into 3 parts, called the void, the darkness, and the light. The void. In the beginning, there were no words, no concept, no winning, no place, no time, no description, no label, and no finishing, until awareness became conscious of itself, separation from source, no east, no west, no south, no north. Not to mention there never existed a dimension or ascension or physical essence, except for the 0 point. There was no Christ to anoint. Singularity, energy, frequency raised vibrationally, paradoxically into limitation what only the 5 senses can see. No linearity, no anarchy, no galaxies, no nebulae, no jobs, no nature, no materialism, and no political lies, until darkness finally fragmented from the light, using free will to see through the night, the darkness. I take the anxiety pill full of fright, in my bed insecure for the conspiracy that might take over my mind, control me with a chip inside, scared and full of fear. That is the reason why we're here. To the star system of Arcturus I stare and recite my cosmic prayers, self-empowered, the fabric of victim consciousness I tear. The light. You see the destination? It's already been chosen. It's the journey that counts. Every day we transcend, no doubt, living in the now, realizing it's all a projection of a co-creation of our own subconscious mind. Channel energy through the heart, remembrance of the divine. Take apart my ego and restart my life in any moment. I'm going home, traveling across the black intergalactic ocean. Took the psychedelic potion, now I'm awoken. To the streets we take the spoken word. Fly high, levitate the God inside. I'm free like a bird. Cosmic oneness integrating in my being. A full spectrum being in alignment with the purity confined in ranges of frequencies inhibit what we are seeing. I shift what I choose to believe in. Fuel my light body for the ether I'm fiending. And this one is called The Journey. The road goes on for generations. The travelers would disperse their light amongst all the willingly incarnated souls. But what if the ones that didn't know? Amnesia and the internal endowment to reserve a place in the fifth dimension for themselves. The ego took control in a better life they shall never know. I welcome you, dark one, into the lap of luxury followed by pain and woes. We all sold our souls to the devil, but the devil exists not. Negative energy we dub as evil creates the demons whom we are fearful. Take the D from the demon, put it in front of the word evil, and now you have a personified devil. Our thoughts and experience creates creature only exists in the mind. Our desires and wants creates the full feature ego that keeps the lower self from reaching the divine. Intellect. Love and a perfect understanding we will have with one another. I welcome you, my brother, my sister, my lover, to become one, to help me become one, before reality takes me from duality and back into ether's imagination. You see, I'm the ghost of lives past. Generations have descended just to gain these experiences, and I pray the human situation is critical, mind analytical, won't let me forget the fall of angels and demons into the third dimensional world. Is this planet yours? May I hide amongst the lost souls? Hide out for a bit, drink some liquor, smoke some weed, and step outside for a cigarette? Yeah, sure, man. Here's a social security card. You may live. Reincarnated to a kid to live again back to the society. And I'm locked in borders that smolder, but through the ashes comes a horde of abstract thought, who is not a ghost of spirit, but just is an enlightened individual. Equality minds that lead us to political goal, the cynical flow, the pain and woes, and shamanistic pagan rituals. We will resurrect the Messiah in all of us. It's time to trust our brothers and sisters. Unity of mind, consciousness, awareness on the rise. The yin yang intertwined masculine feminine lovers from the yin yang intertwined masculine feminine lovers spit words from the chakra points of my spine. Relentless but still fine. Inner peace soaked on the pace of my corrupted mind. Chemtrails, aspartame, for all I get my awareness fried. Getting drunk and high block the conscious question of why am I really here? But now I know is to help humanity steer into the right direction. For every single one of you, I feel affection. We're in the same situation, so erase the awkward moments, trying to walk around and get that bonus. Remember, the Arcturians will be one of the group of interdimensional beings in the near future through mass landings will help us souls really breathe. So raise your frequency if this is what you want to see. And don't try to break free from the shackles of captivity that we formed in our own mentality, because you and I, we are, and we've always been free. Thank you.
Great, Neil. Thanks.
So how do we fit all this information, all the disclosure, everything we're at, our history, into kind of a new spirituality that that we're inventing? Actually, we're creating it.
Well, I would like to say that it's inevitable. If you look back at if you look at the cycles of time and you follow that, yes, for sure. But if you look back at the turn of every zodiac, right, every 2,000 years or so, there's a whole new religion on the planet, right? Almost like clockwork, that something is going on here. We're now 2,000 years after the beginning of the last zodiac. No matter what, there's going to be something else that's going to take control. Whatever you want to say is going to be the energy of the planet, right? I think because of the awareness that we're having now, and because of many people moving away from organized religion, this new religion is the religion of no religion. What I like to call is non-dogmatic spiritualism, not following any dogma, but completely spiritually advanced. So like we can get into all the speculation and all the beliefs about, what's happening, what we're doing. But I like to say that it's pretty much written in history books, like that there is something that's going to occur on planet. Consciousness is going to shift. There's a lot of chaos happening for sure. But what happens is that when the light gets, bright, the shadow that casts it gets longer too. All these deep underlying traumas of humanity need to come to the surface to be experienced. And that is what I feel is happening on a collective level on the planet right now, is that there's so many people here. There's so much stimuli. What would take you 200 years ago to have the experiences of over and over again, you can get within 5 minutes of watching a TV show that reflects your life. Just the ability to, time is not accelerating, consciousness is expanding. And because of that, we're able to process so much more than we've ever been able to do before. And that opportunity is for us to completely release the traumas that are holding us within this density so that we can be the caretakers of the planet. And that's pretty much where I feel is where we're at right now. What's going to happen.
I love that. I agree with it. The only thing I would add to that is that the unknown has some surprises for us, because what we're all talking about, which is only what we know, and then right around the corner is something. What Terence McKenna would say, the universe, he got it from Bell, but the universe is not only stranger than we can imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. So we always have to, like Heraclitus said, expect the unexpected, because the box is always growing, and right outside our window, we can hardly grasp the unfoldment of the new realities. I'll put it that way. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. That's just what comes to me. I mean, just when we have it figured out, something's thrown up in the air. David, what do you think about all that, and what Neil said, and the poetry, and
well, I think that, I mean, that's what I think Neil's kind of embodying it, I mean, that's the new, that's where we're going, I mean, and being able to, I think so with the poetry, it's interesting because Steve had mentioned poetry and you've mentioned poetry, Alan. I know the poetic is, poesis and creation in that, and being able to take the framework of all of these ideas and to create, the poems, and then to embody them in performance too. I mean, that's really, because I think that with the engaging with the making contact idea, and it, especially as you presented it in the book, has really changed the way that I look at things.
how
So
did it change how you look at things? I'm curious.
it's kind of like rippling, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it's hard to break down those kind of like calcified ideas and that, and so like each step of the way it sort of like continues to break, and making contact came out at a point where I was ready to take those kind of like extra steps of the breakdown, so but that concept of making contact, right, and actually making contact and allowing it to happen, and allowing the experiences that you've had. Neil, I really like that idea of the amnesia, because I think that that's a really point of, and this is something that I was actually trying to explain in an email to Whitley today, was this idea of having experiences and ideas that sort of sit there, but then at the right moment in time, they kind of thread together in a different way, and that realization comes, and I think that contact with this other is really like that, where we're constantly kind of experiencing it in little ways, but really recognizing it and embracing it and going for it, is a different experience, and that's what I think it's awesome to see, poetry performed like that, because that's it, right? Like, I mean, that's the whole thing kind of flowing and embodying and coming out.
And that leads me to the poetry section, Dave. Half close your eyelids, loosen your hair, and dream about the great and their pride. They have spoken against you everywhere, but weigh this song with the great and their pride. I made it out of a mouthful of air. Their children's children shall say they have lied. That's Yeats. You make it out of a mouthful of air. You know what I mean? And that's really sort
That's
of
cool.
important. And I just want to say that what I was jamming to your rap with was
What is that? What are we looking at?
Well, you're not by the mic, Steve. We can't hear you.
What is it,
Sorry.
Steve?
I did it while I was sitting here while Neil was giving his presentation.
Nice.
I mean,
Can't hear Steve.
yes, Steve, what are you saying? I mean,
He said
I
he
do
was
want-
drawing it while I was performing the poetry.
Yeah, it's like a kind of visualization. But I
Mhm.
do have to say, what's great about you, Neil, is that you put the knowledge into art, into expression.
That's why I started doing spoken word. When I started doing it in 2001, this is what I've been saying to everybody. It's so much more easier to do a poem that tells you like how dimensions work than to create a whole presentation on it. So all my poetry is basically like lectures in one. So I actually have videos now I'm putting on YouTube that I do my poem, and then I spend like 20 minutes explaining what it means. You know,
Right.
like it's part of the presentation.
But there's more that comes through in the poetry than probably the explanation, because
It's the
poetry
frequency.
has the mystery and the creative aspect in there, the non-linear aspect. But what? Yeah, Henrietta, go ahead. What were you gonna
No,
say?
I loved what you did, Neil. I loved the delivery. That in itself is like you're on a different you know, you're on a different vibration and frequency, and that's like you say, I mean, there's so much more you can get, but like basically how we're talking now, it's very limited. We know that, like these transmissions of through the painting or your rapping, which immediately got me into this whole vibration. And actually I started writing things down because I was like, because what I want to do right now is to put my experiences into poems that then I perform like you, and maybe you have different aspects, you know, multimedia. I mean, it's nothing new, but I'm just saying for me to talk about the what we've been talking about tonight, it's going to be more effective to express that way. And I think it's going to happen to a lot of people. Like David said, I think that's where we're going. Like these conversations, you know, very interestingly for me, whenever I'm have psychedelic experiences, I lose the power of speaking like this.
That happens to me most of the time too.
Right? I just have to, you know, everything is like the earth speaks, other beings speak, and everything is all metaphorical, and it's happening like at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it's glorious. And it's like, but if somebody comes and says, you know, oh, you know, where's the kettle? I have no ability to communicate.
You know, that's the two parts of our mind.
Which is kind of interesting. Exactly. I know.
Those are the two parts of our minds. The one that wants to figure it out. There's all these documents. There's something else there. Where I mean, all of us are here to kind of say, yeah, there's something more going on here. It looks like this, and the government's not telling us. And then there's the creative part that sort of transcends even looking, in a sense. I mean,
yes,
I don't know how to put those two parts together.
Well, I think a lot of us here are combining that. Actually, you don't need to try to, because you are doing it. Like you really are, right? Why are we talking about both here?
That's what I'm thinking, Neil, that these evenings can actually, I've really liked the fact that you did this presentation that gave us so much information and you know, so many jumping off points. And then to go into your poem and Steve's painting and just the concept, you know, I like that amalgam of
me too.
Right?
Yeah,
because
you know, it breaks away from the linearity of it, which is again, you know, and you know, there's but we have to remember that there's no either or. We can be linear and non-linear at the same time. You know what I mean? And when Alan speaks about the two halves of the brain, we have to remember that we have a third brain in our stomach. We probably have another one in the pineal gland. Our tongue, which does the speaking, is probably another sort of brain. But we know there's more than
and the heart.
Steve. There you go.
The heart, and also the cellular intelligence. You know, I mean, right?
And the gut biome of all the little bacteria that are influencing us, and our hormones. So we have to remember that we're in a giant intersection of many influences. I mean, many influences. The government or this media wants to say, hey, look over here, we're in control. And it's like, no, you're fucking not. You know what I mean? And that's why William Burroughs said, rub out the word, destroy all rational thought. You know, and I don't know if you're hip to William Burroughs, Neil, not much, but you know, you definitely need to be, because it's really important. So I think, Dave, why don't you speak about Burroughs for a second?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Alan, did you ever meet William?
I did meet William Burroughs. I asked him.
I've met him.
I asked him about UFOs. I asked him, and he said he didn't know about it, but he was interested. But he was a little bit in his own little sphere. There's a lot going on internally. Do you know William Burroughs, Neil? Do you know who he was?
No, I don't.
Part of the beat sort of scene from the 50s, although I met him in the 80s, I guess. But
I met him in
a little weird, I think. I mean, he was a drug addict for 30 years, but whatever. What do you know
he was
about
a media, in a lot of ways, he was a media theorist. But I'll let Dave go into it. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Dave.
His media theory is incredible. And actually, with his interest in UFOs, he stayed over at the Strieber cabin in upstate New York for a little bit. And he was
what was his media theories? What was that about?
oh man, oh
was
wow.
all
So
media
well, he
theory,
obviously,
Alan.
yeah, it was complete. It was amazing. So obviously the cut up technique that he and Brian Geisen kind of fomented, which was to take pre-existing text and cut it up into new forms and kind of jumble it up. But he did that in the sense that the word itself is, he had the famous, the word is a virus. So it was a way to re-establish
Language is a virus, Dave.
yeah,
Sorry.
language. I'm sorry. Yeah, language is a virus. The word is
Rub
the
out the word.
transceiver. Rub out the word. Yeah. So basically his concept was that silence, right? Like you need to go into the silence to actually experience things. And so he took and deconstructed the word, which then deconstructed the personality and deconstructed everything. But in terms of the topic of making contact in that space and the concept of going into space were incredibly his thought, and he theorized in terms of the body not being able to go into space. So in
Right.
deconstructing the word and deconstructing language, and that was freeing us in order to then embrace this kind of like other and this transcendence.
Right. Also,
Um,
insectoid intelligences and the
I just
Yeah.
centipedes.
Wait, Steve, I just want to say something. The UFOs are forcing us to deconstruct, and the government is trying to hold on to a narrative, even with the leaking, that will
Right.
make us build a new mythology. And what's really going on, and
Yeah.
I think the whole thing you're going to get to about spirituality is to let it all go and just go back to some source, Neil, like the source of your inspiration, whatever
Forward
that
to the
energy
source,
that comes
Alan.
through you,
Forward to the source, not back.
whatever.
Forward to
Well,
the source.
Hey, okay, Steve, but whatever is going on to be creative through you is like sort of what we're looking for, I think, is what I'm trying to say. The impulse to create
Yeah.
is deeper than
Yes.
the origins of UFOs.
I think it's like, so this whole push that they're doing in order to release this document, definitely we know that's probably got some sort of agenda. I think that it's backfiring on them because all it's doing is informing more people what's happening. And
Right.
I'm such a hope, like even though I'm a skeptic, I'm so incredibly hopeful for humanity. Like
Me too.
so to the
That's what my
point
book.
to the
Yes.
point that it's just a knowing that everything's gonna be good. I don't when anything happens that throws off the timeline that looks like we might be controlled, it never phases me because I'm just so set on what we're going to create. So I feel that it's backfiring on them. They're just telling more people. We have more evidence now. All the other people that were spiritually into this now are more confirmed than affirmed, because some people who were spiritually into this weren't affirmed. They just, some people do know it. They're having these contacts, but a lot of people now have this validation. That's what's really it's been for them, right? And now we got that validation. A lot of people, it's not fair for us to say we don't need it because there's so many humans on this planet. Some people do need it, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
we might not need it here, but these people who need it have it, and now we can all move forward with the same awareness. They want to funnel people into some sort of agenda-oriented thing. I just don't believe it's going to manifest like that.
So Neil, we have to be careful though. I get this idea that we just go forward, but this is, to coin a frame, nothing short of total war. And the price of
why war, Steve?
The price of freedom. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. You know what I mean?
That's
These
Jefferson.
intelligences, need to be tested. Everything needs to be questioned and tested. We have to question our own reality tunnel. We have to really constantly dissemble our senses. What we think is right is probably wrong. You know what I mean? And we just have to kind of live with that and go with it. I'll just say that what was interesting was I looked when you said go to those pages. I went on my phone and looked at the page of the code. And I really loved, if anybody hasn't looked at it, that the code language that was received, they were breaking. It was so much like Lasalia and a cut up. And, this information that we're getting doesn't fit in any box, and we have to accept it as such. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the UFO thing.
It's
UFOs,
psychedelic,
whatever
like
it is.
Henrietta was talking about psychedelic. Psychedelic is mind expanding.
Right.
That's all it is. It's not drugs. It's mind expanding.
Yes, there are no boxes for what the future represents. All we have is what we know.
Unlimited potential.
Well, and so, but we don't have a reference point for the future.
Yeah.
And if we can stay in the nothingness, I think whatever the UFO reality really is will come to us easier through a kind of non-egoic perception.
And we have to remember the box is also, if we look at it from another dimension, it's a tesseract. And then beyond that, it goes beyond that. You know, it's wheels within wheels.
Yeah.
And like I was mentioning before I got up, it's initiations within initiations. So if you get initiated once, don't say, oh, fuck, I got initiated. I did ayahuasca. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
No, you didn't. Keep moving on.
It's
The price
maintenance.
of freedom is eternal
Exactly.
movement.
Yeah,
And it-
yeah. I'm with you on that.
So Neil, what do you think is going to happen? What's your idea? I mean, I know I'm hopeful too. I think it's really going to be positive.
Yeah.
But how do you think the next layer of reality will unfold?
It's shifted so many times that even when I say this, I'm completely open to it shifting again. But at this point, I believe that people are going to be creating communities that basically are utilizing conscious technology, expanding their minds, their merkabas, whatever you might want to call it, however that manifests in the future. And through that, we're going to, that's going to become a bigger and bigger thing as we're moving into an age where we're able to connect even more, and advanced technology is coming out. 100 years ago, we thought everything was an atom and above. And now we've broken that and realized that the subatomic world, well, even though ancient people knew about the subatomic world for a while, but we're realizing that the subatomic world is the building blocks of the Newtonian world, but the subatomic world physics do not match with the Newtonian physics. However, Newtonian physics is based on the subatomic world. So what we're doing now is we're piercing through the illusion. First time in thousands of years. We pierced the illusion. We're realizing this is like an organic holographic projection that seems so physical, and is organic and beautiful in its own right. And by that, we are now at the beginning phases of what we can create from this awareness. Now that we've pierced through the illusion, how can we utilize this energy for the betterment of humanity? So what we need to focus on is our spirituality. We need to focus on checking ourselves, putting it to the side, working together for the collective. And that's what, people used to ask me back in the day, what does meditation have to do with UFOs? It's got everything to do with it, because without shifting our frequencies, focusing on our intent and who we are as people, without releasing traumas, right, that we've acquired from not only the educational system, but the fact that we don't really, everybody's pretty much winging it on this earth, including parents. We implement and embed all of these traumas into us that I feel that we all need to collectively work on. And not only that, change the institutions on the planet. This is what I believe is going to happen very soon. We're going to have communities. Institutions are going to start shifting. Might take 10 years, might take 100 years. The institutions will better use the research that we have of what works for humanity in order for us to be empowered. When we get to a point where we're not looking at the bottom line being the shareholder, but being humanity in the earth, we can start focusing on those technologies. And what right now is the conversation of that. People are really upset at the fact that corporations, for example, their bottom line is just how much money they can make, profitability. Humanity is not considered in there. So what really needs to happen is a shift of consciousness, and we need to operate business consciously, right? So all I'm saying here is outlining all the things that we need to do, and then I'm seeing that it's actually occurring. And there's organizations that are implementing this, and there's conversations on the global level and the national level about, making all these reforms. It might take some time because there's still a huge power struggle going on. There's still agendas happening there, but I think that we're in the right direction. And part of it is piercing through the illusion by understanding what we're made of and what reality consists of. And eventually, when we start funding those and putting money into the right projects, rather than trying to be the biggest military on the planet, we will be able to start, expanding in other ways. That's pretty much my consensus. I could speak on it forever, but that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
No, I love that. Henrietta, you were going to say something here? Henrietta, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I was just feeling excited about the fact that, humans are just sort of, limitlessly creative, and what we can create together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sort of at this moment where, like Neil was saying, in this, particularly in these last few years, where we know that our world is changing, actually physically, in the environmentally, and how systems are breaking down. And it's just exciting to me that we can kind of go back to the spirit of the 60s of, invention and creativity, I was thinking of, break on through to the other side. And I remember watching this interview with Patti Smith, where they were saying, like, some very uptight presenter was saying, and what do you do when, you break on through to the other side? And she goes, you break on through to the other side, and then you break on through to the other side. And then
That's good.
Right. And so I like that sort of period of the 60s that was so experimental and freewheeling and creation. Can go there again, but just with technology, as you're saying, and a little bit more, I don't know, not a little bit more kind of grown up. We're not just going to be, it's not all hedonistic, and you know what I'm saying.
You have to mature in that
I'm
level.
excited about that. That people.
I have a friend, Gad Stern. Gad turned Ginsburg onto weed when they were 50, but Gad was one of the people doing the happenings in the 60s. He was very much involved in the Life magazines. When you would see these pictures in Life, that was Gad. Gad's still around. He's 89 years old. It would be great to have him come on because he's
yes. Well,
really,
actually, making me think it's great to get some of those people on, because I know a lot of those people too who were sort of in that era, and I think that for me it's just a delightful thought that we can actually play and have fun again together.
Too. There's a narrative that they have. There's a narrative that they have that's getting lost, and we have to. It really is an informative narrative that that should be passed along verbally, because people who and so so Gad, though, very interesting guy. He ran a thing called USCO.
I like Gad. He's a good guy.
Gad.
I met him.
He worked with McLuhan.
He's classic. He's classic. But just to kind of wrap it all up here, I think we are going into new territory in a good way, where we're exploring the question in ways that I don't think are traditional. So I'm happy we're looking at the whole UFO thing beyond even what the government wants or doesn't want us to think from a spiritual perspective. I mean, this is where intellectual
Alan.
Yeah. Tell me. Yes, Henrietta.
It just makes me think about the conversations that we've had, Alan, like, just in a short amount of time about, like, whatever it is, something happens, you see one, you break on through to the other side, you don't know what's coming next, but you're switched on in a different way.
I think that's the government's problem, that they don't know what to expect of it. They can't control it. They can't put a cap on it. So they rather be in control of the narrative,
false narrative, right?
Yeah. And then they get people thinking as they leak a document, and then they say, no, we didn't leak that. Everyone jumps on that because that focuses on here instead of looking beyond that to someplace else. They want you to focus on the controversy and distract you from the deeper message. I think it's that?
I'm going to push a book that I love called Evolutionary Art and Computers by Stephen Todd and William Latham. And it deals a lot with design choices, branching design choices. And because, Alan, when the government is doing this narrative, they're doing it by design. They're pruning a tree. They're saying this branch doesn't live, this branch does. And they prune the tree. So this book is about doing design choices to create life forms in a way. But I'll just say it's it's a really 1990. It's a really great book to open your mind to how the design process works when you're designing what the government is doing, pruning the media tree to go in a certain direction, as opposed to being free.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So to wrap up, I do have to go to a little, but Neil, wait.
Yeah, Alan.
Henrietta, what did you have to say, Henrietta? Were you going to say something?
Oh, no. Well, just a little thing. It just, it occurs to me that, all this information and all these narratives that are being thrown at us, like one of the things that I do believe is that actually television and film right now, you know, we can be very effective in that realm of telling stories, you know, because it's right.
Entertainment.
Right.
Sorry.
Entertainment. People, you know, we eat up entertainment, so that's a great way to deliver messages.
Right.
Yeah, around what we've been talking about tonight. Like more of that, please.
Yeah.
You know,
So
Consume
Dave,
or
I wanna ask-
create.
But I
Consume
want
or
to ask
create.
Dave, you know, so this is another layer in the last I guess 6 or 7 weeks where we're dissecting the ET UFO situation, and today like the real narrative has emerged, but not the real narrative, just another layer, and we're just trying to keep getting under it, and somehow, because there's always something more than what we've been
It's nonstop
told.
right
So
now.
what do you think, Dave, about the whole layers and layers of reality that we're dissecting here?
Yeah, well, I think it's absolutely. I mean, because you started out you know, making contact. Obviously, when you started putting that book together, it came out before, you know, this big kind of push is coming, right? And so you have all the things that come into the book, but then also now we have this series that you've started of conversations that address all this, and it is pretty amazing to see the, you know, the mainstream media getting in on it, and to have these different, I mean, because a lot of the guests you've had on here, I mean, Neil, you've been at this for over a decade, right? Or a decade of research in that, you know? I mean, and just everyone who's been on has a long history with this topic, you know, and then things are changing so quickly, and different, you know, different voices are coming in, and different experiences and different realizations in that. So it's really I think it's fantastic to have these conversations, and each week it changes, right? I mean, from the first time that I came on to now, like we've had so many different things drop in the news, and different stuff and different things. And it's funny, you know, I mean, I work at a university, and seeing my coworkers kind of come to try to deal with the topic as it, you know, becomes more popular. And what was kind of, you know, joking with me about being interested in these topics to now being like, oh wait, well, what is actually going on? Because this is now, you know, being.
Yeah, exactly. That's
But
why
having
the book,
open mind is important.
and the book
Things are shifting.
and my book and everything Neil is doing on Portal to Ascension is gearing people towards a kind of more expanded view of what's possible.
The way to understand a system is that you have to view it from the outside. So that implies that you step outside yourself, you step outside your reality tunnel,
Seriously.
you step outside the box. But I mean, that's tricky because it's an illusion that we're stepping outside ourselves. You know, we have to be careful.
You can never step outside yourself, especially you, Steve.
So I have my goggles, my VR goggles.
I thought those were shoes you were wearing on your face. All right.
But not again, going back to the Owl of Minerva takes flight at dusk, right? I mean, you know.
Steve, you lose me, Steve, with your illusions. Or illusions. But
use your illusions. Great record.
Illusions. But anyway,
so
yeah. Anyway, to wrap it up, any final word, Neil? Because
I would like to share the poem "Prism of Lyra" that is in my presentation. Because basically the whole entire Lyra Galactic Origins thing is in that poem. So it's like 20 slides in one poem, and I think that's a good way to end it, because we want to really end it with a spiritual connection of it all. So is that cool?
Yes. Go ahead. I'm going to spotlight you. With your slides. Yeah, great. Perfect.
Okay, cool. So this one here is called The Prism of Lyra. I wrote it because Lisa Royale made a book called The Prism of Lyra that was really life-changing for me when I read it many years ago. So I wrote this for her and got to give it to her. But this is basically just and like Alan said in the beginning, I have had the opportunity to work with hundreds of speakers, actually probably over 900 individual speakers. 90% of them completely like revolutionary minds that are actually on a huge level making some shifts on the planet, and then also holistic practitioners, all types of things. I've sat through thousands of presentations. I've cultivated 10,000 hours of presentations. I've watched almost all of it. I've had the opportunity to piece together pieces that many presenters and researchers maybe have only been focused on their work because they've been so focused on it, but I've had the opportunity to see their work plus so many others and fill in a lot of gaps. And this presentation here really was a 5 years in the making presentation that I was still filling in gaps. And to me, the reason why I started doing this in the first place was not to preach to the choir, but to teach the linear analytical minded people like myself, like my Indian community, basically how we're all one and interconnected, and consciousness exists and ETs probably exist, but speak to it in a linear way. So as I was doing that, I went into the galactic origins thing and started understanding all these concepts about Lyra. So this piece I'm going to do for you right now is basically, the first part is just talking about, the human experience and just us and this planet and the cosmos. And then the second verse gets into the story of Lyra and the beings that, may have had an involvement on this planet. But I want to do a disclaimer first. If I say Pleiadians, Sirians, Arcturians, I'm not talking about one specific beings. That's just what, might be somebody's belief when they say Arcturians, they're talking about one specific beings. These constellations are vast. Multiple planets exist with them. In some of these systems, it may be, third dimensional life. It might be just a realm of experience. And because that is the case, when you're speaking about these beings, you really don't know who is the race. These are just the labels that we put on them based on the location and the constellation that we believe they come from. So I don't ever mean Pleiadians as in the, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed person. Who knows who these beings are, right? And if that's even their name or what they call themselves. So that's my little disclaimer. Prism of Lyra. If you guys want to follow my music, conscious poetry, hip-hop album, spoken word album, and Portal to Ascension events, I'm on Instagram, I_am_resonance, and I'm at Portal to Ascension on other platforms. The Prism of Lyra. I rhythmatically scratch records. Visionary mass appeal, holistically heal the resonance of a presence, allow yourself to feel. Fragmentation of source, self-wishing to experience, was all for one thought of what if, could I be this? The polar opposite. Through the prism we came, created a prison of the brain. Enslaved? You don't think so? There are no victims in this show. We're all playing a role. Ego, learn to let it go. Let the soul flow from the crown to the root. I'm letting you know it's only conceptual. Experience allows wisdom to grow. So embrace the ignorance that spreads from the elitist control. You see, when the Syrians descended into this density, the Lyrans came, looking for a place to incarnate and name a species and a race to hold the souls of they who are interdimensional entities. Integration being the third point, anoint the Christ consciousness sacred geometry to protect the kids of the universe being only one galaxy. Moving closer to the center by raising our frequency, I frequently see infinite possibilities. The snake in the Bible will be found to be the positivity. Polarized by the Syrians who knew about free will, gave us the choice of the blue and red pill. The Lyrans were enraged. They wanted us to keep us ingrained in oneness and fifth dimensional grace. Instead, into darkness we came. So that one day we can transcend and regain remembrance of our place in this intergalactic plane of extraterrestrials, just to name a few. Arcturians, Pleiadians, and Syrians who, genetically mutated early man too, create a perfect embodiment of who they are, using Stargate souls coming through stars, entering the womb to embark on a journey through the dark to once again spark and ignite the flame, rearrange the neural networks in the brain to achieve enlightenment. The universe is full of abundance. Together we live the cosmic dance, the interdimensional manifestation of man, extraterrestrial incarnates known as light workers. We're here to transform this land. We're here to transform this land.
Thank you, Neil Gaur, ladies and gentlemen, Henrietta Weekes, David Metcalf, and Stephen Spear. Anyway, this is an ongoing discussion. Come back any week, Neil, because we're going to have, it's like, we want to evolve. I think, there's the intuitive side to this, but I think we also have to understand it with a greater mind. I think that's what because we're part of the mystery, but it doesn't mean we have to be ignorant of the mystery. That's my feeling. So,
Good point, Alan.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I love doing these discussions because I like using my mind. I mean, not the mentality but the kind of thought that has no answer kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that somebody said real thinking is thinking that doesn't have has no solution. And that's just what we're trying, right? So there's
philosophy.
right. It's like, it's open-ended. We're
Yep.
not saying it's this. It's
That's what science used to be, by the way. And now it's a lot of times it's like, oh, because we know this is what it is. And if it doesn't fit in my box, it's not real. The original
Yeah.
scientists were the philosophers. They were asking questions.
yeah.
Well, they
natural.
also, yeah, and they would also, the greatest discoveries were accidental. You know,
Yeah.
they weren't through these kind of linear methodology. It would just
Yeah.
be a sudden, like accident, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, thank you, Neil, for, well, not just for tonight, but, Neil works so hard and he's at it all the time trying to network all these new ideas. This is like, he's called it the Netflix for consciousness is what Portal to Ascension is. It really is. And come to the conference
Right.
coming up. It's free. Portal to Ascension is
Mhm.
the, what do you call it? The Portal to Ascension forum?
What the
Yeah.
the website? What is it called? Just the
No, the
the
event
Portal to
coming up.
Ascension conference, the
Yeah.
annual Portal to Ascension conference. This is a 4th annual, but now we're doing it twice a year, starting this year,
Right.
halfway in
it's-
the year, the end of the year.
It's great. Brilliant minds that, are adding to the mystery because the mystery, can't be solved. It could just be
Explored.
explored. Exactly. But
Yep.
it's exciting because we are really, with all the things coming out with disclosure, no matter what the mythology is, we're at the forefront of an unknown, a
Mhm.
real vast global cultural unknown where it's like you're falling off the cliff. It's like there's nothing in sight. There's just like a new world being formed in front of us, hopefully, that has a new narrative. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody.
Stranger
Thanks,
than-
Neil. Good seeing you,
Thanks, guys.
Dave and Henrietta and Alan.
Henrietta, I'll talk to you, Henrietta, soon. And
All right, thanks,
Yes.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Neil's gone already,
Oh,
but
Neil's
I love
Couldn't get out fast enough.
one of the
Couldn't get out fast